How do you keep your edge? With the cutting-edge design of the stylish Lexus RX, it's second nature. Powertrain options offer power on demand. An available cloud-based Lexus interface keeps you tapped in with ease.
Hey, Lexus, show me the way home.
So never lose your edge with the Lexus RX. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Drive Connect capability with cloud navigation, including Google Point of Interest data and Intelligent Assistant, including Hey Lexus and Destination Assist. Subscription required.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we're back. And with us today is Brigadier General Blaine Holt. And he was Deputy United States Military Representative to NATO. Well, General, the French Prime Minister is saying things about NATO. I don't know if you read what happened today. Let's see. Macron today announces together that Trump, no matter what he does with the Ukraine, NATO will continue to support the Ukraine in its war efforts. Who's in charge?
Oh. Well, it's great to be with you. And what a difference a week makes. And it's so fun to watch them with their reactions and start to freak out. Let's remember one thing. America is now going to resume its role in leadership at NATO. Why is that? Well, we pay for most of it. So, Macron can squawk and others will squawk, but then there'll be voices that are much more reasonable, like Viktor Orban of Hungary, and they will start to check some of these globalists that are really big on money and weapons, but not strategy for how to manage European security problems. And so I'm very, very excited about the future. I know we're going to hear a lot more sound bites that sound horrible, but when the end comes, meaning the first visit that President Trump makes to Brussels, you'll see pretty quickly that folks will respond to renewed United States strength and leadership.
So Macron is going to go on it with himself. Who's he speaking for? He's speaking for France. He's not speaking for NATO. Who speaks for NATO?
Well, right now, you've got Mark Rutte, who was the former, what I would call failed prime minister of the Netherlands. He's now the general secretary. He is also very much in alignment.
By the way, Rutte announced today that he's going along with Macron.
Of course he is. They're birds of a feather, and they love to hang out at Davos with their friends at the World Economic Forum. But what they're failing to understand is that the days of the alliance pushing around the United States administration and dictating what happens, well, those are coming to an end. Macron's biggest interest is not France. His biggest interest is in the European Union and in federalization of the European Union to the extent that it evaporates sovereignty across the continent. And there's going to be now in the aftermath of the Trump victory, it's already started. It started a year ago, but you're going to see a lot of these governments change. I think what we're going to see next is a wholesale change of the government in Germany. Scholz is going to come out. He's very much cut from the same cloth. And of course, they're going to be ranting and raving and screaming about how they don't like the Trump doctrine, which is we don't want endless wars. We'd much rather use a demilitarized diplomatic foreign policy. And eventually, you're going to find folks who are more than willing to follow President Trump into prosperity and peace in that continent.
I'm praying so. Judge Weinberg, you had a comment?
General, it's good to talk to you again. So what do you anticipate that President Trump and his administration are going to do with respect to the Ukraine first, and second with respect to the problem of Iran?
Yeah, so let's get to the Ukraine first. I think President Trump's got a golden opportunity because he doesn't carry any Ukrainian baggage with him. In this previous administration, certainly they had the perfect phone call and Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, and they made a big impeachment thing about it. But that has nothing to do with the war. The war has to get to a conclusion. What has not happened yet, and what President Trump is likely to do, I don't want to get out in front of him, is he's likely to get Moscow and Kiev involved in a dialogue that gets to where an endpoint can be. And it's going to look a lot more diplomatic because we've got nearly 1 million killed, $2 trillion in infrastructure down, a third of the population that's never coming back or moving back to Ukraine, and a big, giant economic disaster to boot. Now, moving to Iran, I think that he has pretty much communicated that Israel is going to see its ally hold near and dear to it again. The Israelis can expect logistics resupply, and the mullahs of Iran, you saw it on election night, the Iranian real just crashed to zero and they went to hyperinflation, indicating that they all understand the days of billions coming into the mullahs so that they can pay for proxies to make war in the region and make war on Israel. Those days are gone. And the idea that we're going to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, fantasy island. It's not going to go anywhere. And you watch, Saudi Arabia is already looking at tightening relations with the United States. Qatar has said to Hamas, you've got to leave. The leadership can't operate here anymore. UAE very much taking a strong hand in coming back. And so, you know, even in advance of Inauguration Day, we're watching President Trump knock out foreign policy goal after foreign policy goal. Contrast that with an administration where they had 0 victories, 0 wins the entire 4 years in foreign policy. Actually, quite the opposite.
General, this is George Pataki. First, I agree with you completely on Iran and the Middle East. I think the Trump support of Israel and of our allies are going to make us draw closer to places like Saudi Arabia and leave the mullahs and the Iranian regime in deep trouble. On Ukraine, I have grave reservations about imposing an unfair peace on Ukraine. I don't think anybody wants a forever war. It's just in no one's interest. But on the other hand, if ever there was a case of good against evil, it's Putin invading a sovereign country. Now he has North Korean troops on the front line fighting against Ukraine, which is an elected democracy. Yes, I'm for peace, but I think we have to stand with Ukraine until it can be an honorable peace that they can accept.
Well, Governor, I'm actually in agreement with you. I actually advise and have been a helpful, quiet strategist for the MOD in Ukraine for the last 4 years, or 3 years. But we have to understand that Ukraine didn't start with the war in 2022. Ukraine was a foreign policy problem going way deep into the Obama administration and actually somewhat before then. I was actually stationed in Europe, and I was the deputy rep to NATO when a lot of the Crimea stuff was happening. So where we are at now is the place where we've got to find an off-ramp to the war. No, Putin does not need to be rewarded at all, but we also understand that throwing money and weapons at something without a strategy is also not going to get us anywhere. So Ukraine has to be a part of its own solutions to the end state. Russia has to be at the table when we get there. And I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that we take a soft hand towards Putin or any kind of reward. I'm also not suggesting that we get ourselves into an escalatory stance with the largest nuclear power on the planet after the United States. So it's going to be a very daunting task for President Trump. This was a deterrable war. It did not have to come to this had we had able hands in the foreign policy realm. But I think there is going to be a solution. There are a lot of non-military levers to bring to bear with Russia that we can use. One of them is they're failing miserably in their relationship with China. Yeah. Again, these are holes that we can exploit.
General, thank you so much for bringing the American people up to date, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Hey, I'm a big fan of all three of you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, General.
You're a pro at managing your diabetes, but did you know United Healthcare has plans designed especially for you? United Healthcare Complete Care Plans are made specifically for people with certain chronic conditions like diabetes. See if you qualify, because if you do, you'll be able to access United Healthcare's large provider network for the extra care you may need. If you live in Georgia, you have options. Let their team guide you through those options so you can find the United Healthcare Medicare plan that's right for you. Just go to uhc.com/Medicare.